Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Overcome Yourself podcast. As you know, I'm Nicole and today I'm here with Whitney. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I'm here with Whitney. I'm so excited. So Whitney, take it away. Introduce yourself, please. Tell us more about you. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thanks, Nicole, for having me. I'm super excited to start my morning with you and your audience. So, I like to tell people a little bit about like my backstory and like how I became a divine alignment coach, a spiritual coach, spiritual mentor. I feel like I go by a couple of different names. Some people call me a mentor, guide, coach. But really my background started in the mental health field. So for many, many, many years, I was a psychotherapist. I worked with families, youth, individuals, and then I did a lot of couples work towards the end of my career. I saw pretty much every diagnosis under the sun. I saw, anxiety, depression, PTSD, just all kinds of relationship issues. And while it was a lot of fun, it was a huge learning experience. It was such an invaluable learning experience, I feel like, and it really, really set the tone and the foundation, I feel like, for what I'm doing now. But I always like to tell people that what I did was I kind of took the integration of what I learned as a therapist, and then I brought in the spirituality piece because I'm a big spiritual seeker, a mystic. I've been tapping into source guidance since I was a kid, even though I didn't really fully understand what I was doing back then. And I was originally raised, in the church. And I remember even back then as a kid, just asking so many questions and badgering my mom to death. I'm pretty sure my mom was so annoyed. And yeah, I got in trouble a lot. Questioning things. Mom, why does God say this? Why does the Bible say this? Why do we have to do this? I think that also set the tone for going out and wanting to seek kind of like this more expanded, more soulful, more kind of direct spiritual route to what we're doing here on this earth. And I brought that into what I was learning in my therapy training and experience. And I feel like it filled in so many gaps of what the psychological stuff that I was taught wasn't really able to do for my clients. Because there would be times where we would work the therapeutic modalities and do all the things. And I was like, but still, something's not clicking. They're not getting better. They're still struggling. Then I started to bring in the other piece. And I think that was really scary for me. So I don't know if you want me to pause here because I could just go on and on and on about this.
No, go for it. I love it. I was going to ask some questions, but go tell me the story. I'm into it. I want to.
Yeah. So this was really scary for me. This is where, when I think of like having to overcome myself, this is where this really comes in. So being in the clinical community, and I do want to say, like, this is going to be different for everyone. Not every therapist is going to feel this way. Not every coach is going to feel this way about therapy. So it's not a judgment on either profession. This is just talking about me and my experience. And I was scared to be that kind of more eclectic style, integrative spiritual thing, because I felt like the clinical community I had around me was more into evidence-based studied practices. And as you probably already know, and your listeners know, when it comes to spiritual things, some of it has been studied, but not a lot of it, not to the degree where it's been tested and to the point where it can get that like stamp of evidence-based. But I remember specifically, like with one case that I had, like we kept trying to kind of figure out why he was showing up the way he was with some of the anxiety and depression. And it was interesting. I remember this session to a T, that when we started exploring past lives for him, it changed so much. I don't know what it was about maybe finding an answer outside of his current experience or even his childhood experience in this life, but it was something about going back into the past life realm that opened up something incredible for him to release. And so it's things like that as an example where I'm going like, okay, like I really want to fully honor like who I am, because that's the type of stuff that I connect into, but I would like hold myself back because I didn't want people to think I was cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs, so to speak. So for a while, like over a year or so, I definitely tried to like, play by the rules and just integrate it, but in very tiny little doses. And then I got this nudge, I believe, from my spiritual team on the other side saying, you need to go ahead and walk away from traditional therapy. And I was like, so at this point, I built my private practice up to 6 figures, and I was like very proud of this thing. You know what I mean? And my then husband had finally stopped yapping about the inconsistent money that was coming in. So I was like, oh my gosh, like to walk away at that point and to essentially kind of start over as a coach, because thinking too, at this point, I didn't know that much about the coaching industry. And like a lot of my clients were based on, some of them were private pay out of like cash pay, but most of them were paid through their insurance.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a different level of financial security I had through building that business. And I was being nudged. It felt like it just kept getting stronger each and every day. So I did, I took it incrementally and I kind of like dabbled in a few things and tried to get in the door, but it wasn't until I fully committed and jumped that I actually started to see like growth in my spiritual coaching business. So yeah, it was a journey, and obviously there was a lot of trial and error along the way. Yeah.
That's a big deal, is jumping in. I remember the call and it didn't make any sense for me either. Like it didn't make logical sense. But it was just something that I knew that I had to do. And it has been a hard road. It is a hard road. This is not for everyone.
No.
But those of us that make it down this road,
Mhm.
like the road is really ugly, but then when you get to where you're going, it's just something else, and it becomes worth it. But like we can't really explain it to you until you do it, because when you're going through it, it can be so rough. Like you said, you left behind a 6-figure practice. That's a big deal that you built up for yourself. Like that's a big deal, and I tip my hat. I commend you for that. Because you're walking on water, girl, like that. Right? Like it's just something else. And I love, one of the things is that you mentioned is how we're missing a side, and we are body, mind, and spirit, right? We have more than just one level. We're like 3D. And so I think it's a big deal, and I think you're very correct when we can't just work on one of those areas and expect everything to be good. Like your health is good, but your mindset's in the trash. Like you're not going to be happy. Like you're still not going to be healthy. You're still going to have pains. And so I think it's also a big deal with the three, with working on everything, right? Because that's what we work on. We work on our body, then we have to work on our mind. And then you also bring in the spirit level. And those are 3 very different things, eating healthy and then practicing gratitude and like doing our things, practicing habits and things like that. So I love that. I wanted to ask, because I just did a live recently in my group talking about habits and trust deposits. So can you touch a little bit on the difference in the habits, because you made that big change. So can you talk a little bit about that transition, and what's different in coaching versus when you had your more traditional practice, I guess we could say?
Yeah. One of the biggest things that, it came in right away and it basically was requiring me to lean into was the trust. And it's interesting because it was like my spiritual guidance team was the one that I felt was leading me through to this next phase. And so at any given moment, I would look up and go, well, how the heck is this supposed to work? I'd be like, well, I don't even see the roadmap for this. And it became one of those things of like faith. you know?
Yeah.
It was like, okay, well, Whitney, do you really think, like, when I would ground and really be good about being present and centering myself? Obviously, when I'm running around like a crazy person, like doing all the things, it's harder. So you have to have an intention to ground. But when I would do that and I would listen in, I would get the message of like, okay, we didn't bring you this far, and to just leave you, hang you out to dry, like just, to just leave you with nothing. And so it was a lot of like, I had to believe things before I actually saw them come to life.
What you're making me think of is like when you're driving at night with headlights.
Mm,
Like that's what you saw, right? Like there's
right.
no lights or anything. Like you saw what was right in front of you, and that's it.
Yeah, there were no like street lamps like
Right.
several miles down where I could see the destination down there.
Mhm. Like you
And
just
I
have to
mean,
trust that the road keeps going in front of where you can see. Yeah.
and yeah, it felt like it. I mean, definitely, I call it like a faith walk. It felt like the more I trusted, the more I was basically following in the steps, like the right next step at each step based on what I was receiving in the guidance. Every time I did that, I felt like it was like a gold star in the spirit world. And then things would go, like things would happen. Like, for example, I needed to take over my lease, like someone to take over my office lease. And I had all this furniture. I had like, the last couple of years had built this thing up.
Mhm.
And I'm like, there is no one, because it was actually kind of a pricey lease in a nice area. So I felt like the logical mind can look at things and go, there's no way. And like
Mhm.
start reasoning and pros and cons. And before you know it, none of it logically makes sense. Like, who's going to come take over my lease? What am I going to do with my furniture? And I need it done in this amount of time for this to work for the next step that's coming up. Someone came. It was like
Yeah.
a miracle. She gave me an incredible deal. It was the perfect fit for her. She bought all my furniture. I didn't have to move a thing. So she took over
Wow.
the lease and bought all the furniture, and she loved the decor. She was like, this is better than I could have ever done. This is like heaven sent. I was like, really? Oh my
That's
gosh.
awesome.
You
And
know,
that's beautiful that you manifested that. Like you put it out into the universe. I need this, I need this, I need this. And then you were like, all right, you handle that. And then she probably feels like she manifested. She's like, I cannot believe I found a fully furnished office. Oh my God, this is a great deal. And so it was like a win-win for everybody. I love that.
it was. And transitioning into the coaching world, you asked about like some of the differences. And what I love, honestly, about coaching, and I think this is why my guides kind of brought me into this direction. And I fluctuate and call it mentoring sometimes, or spiritual guidance. I've also found that just it doesn't always, the word's not so important. It's more like the work that's happening. But the freedom and the expansion to call in, this is like blowing my mind even as I say it, the energy. It's like to call in an energetic match, a true energetic match in the clients that you work with. I tend to work with people who are ready to come home to themselves, or who are at that place in their life where they're tired of walking through life the way that they have. Maybe they're misaligned, maybe they're stuck, maybe they've been living. But I also have calibrated to the energy of people who are here to create and pioneer, which that wasn't really coming in when I was full-time therapist.
Yeah.
I was calling in people who are more an energetic match to like what I like to call like baseline healing,
Mhm.
baseline coping, like, some people struggling to get out of bed in the morning, and there's no judgment on that. Like, we're all at different places on our path. I think where it is now, and this is a product of my energetic growth and the work I've done on myself too. But it's like, I call in a lot of women who are bringing something fresh and new into the world, and it's big. But with that comes a lot of freaking responsibility, and you have to be on top of your energetic game. So it's like, I know what that feels like because I walked that path too, and found the pieces, sought out the pieces, worked on the pieces. And I myself being mentored and have historically across like pretty much my whole life, I've always had a mentor or several to help me harness this stuff.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Having someone to help you, to hold you accountable, that can just, sometimes you just need to vent, because every time we level up, we face, sometimes it's the same, you're like, is this the same thing? Yeah, because it's the next level of that, whatever it is. And one of the things, most important things I've learned about manifesting is when we start manifesting, sometimes everything seems to go wrong. And it's because it's those lessons that we need for that next level. So like you said, those are levels of responsibility that when you're starting out, you haven't even thought of. Like when you start hiring people and people depend on you so that they can go get their groceries, you know what I'm saying? That's a whole new level of responsibility. And there's like a humbleness to it where you're like, I don't have to eat, but everybody that came to work for me, they definitely have to eat, and those are levels of responsibility that when you're starting out, you don't think of. And so I think you're so dead on that at every level, we might not even have the same mentor. Some of the mentors we can grow with, but some of them we're like, okay, I need someone now for, level 3, because you helped me out with level 2, but now it's time for level 3 and you're at level 3. So I need someone who's at level 5 that can, you know what I'm saying? So yes, big deal. And that's not to say, because maybe you're at level 5 and you start working with someone at level 1 and you can work all the way up to the top, right? But yeah, I love that. The different mentors. I have so many coaches like for different things that I work with, Yes, for different areas. Like you don't have 4 business coaches, right? You have like a business coach, and then you have a spiritual coach, and then you have like, like a mental, like I have like an ND coach, I have a storytelling coach. And so, yes, it's a big deal to have help because there's so many things that we don't know yet when we're doing all these things. Like you said, when we're like creating things, like being able, we are co-creators, right? Like we are on this earth and we create, like we imagine there's something in our mind, whether it's a social media post or a blog post, there's something that doesn't exist in the world, and then we bring it into existence. That's amazing. And at each level we create bigger or different things. And if I didn't have mentorship, I wouldn't be where I am, right? Like I would not be on video right now.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I that it just speaks to my soul. Like to not feel alone, to feel supported. And I want to say, like, speaking to people who are even just starting out, and like me, when I started out, I felt like I had all of this big energy brewing inside of me and all these ideas, but like, again, back to that whole not having the roadmap. And I feel like one of the beautiful things too about mentorship is, in the coaching world, especially, is there's mentors for every level, right? Like you said, level 1, level 2, level 3, all these things. And so manifesting the right mentors it became a game changer. When I first got into the coaching industry, I feel like I kind of psyched myself out a little bit, and I tried to find mentors that I don't know would guarantee me to be successful, whatever that means, that whole thing. And I measured that by like, okay, how successful are they? And it didn't take me very long to figure out, oh, no, Whitney, like this is no different. Even though this is a new phase of your journey, you need to find your alignment again. And I had to come back to my alignment, and I started manifesting coaches that would be a perfect energetic match for me, like a really, really good one. And once I shifted out of that, instead of like who people were telling me I should, hire as help, or who, you look at out in the media and advertising, and you see lots of shiny things, and it's easy to go, oh, that person's going to help me get to where I want to go. But like you were mentioning, like, I had a spiritual shaman I worked with for about 6 years. And so she was one that ended up staying with me. But I ended up searching for coaches that had more of a deepened spiritual edge. And then like the shaman, she's not a coach at all. So she doesn't she doesn't play in the industry and, the terminology and the packages and all of that kind of those coaching pieces, but she brings a really unique balance to what I'm creating. And then I have another guy who deeply just tuned in on a spiritual level, but highly also has that masculine strategy and business aspect. It's interesting bringing a male energy on for me and having a woman. And then I have another woman coach too. Oh my gosh, they're so amazing. And I'm so grateful. It's like I feel like I call them the dream team in my own head.
That's awesome. Yes. And that's a big deal in our businesses and in life, because when you find the right coach, they don't just improve your business, your whole life changes because your mindset doesn't stay at work, you keep that mindset. And so all the things that you learn about, your discipline and sales, like, having conversations with people is different because you can lead the conversation better. You ask questions. And so like, what do you want for dinner becomes a whole new thing because you can ask, you can narrow down, okay, do you want chicken or beef? You know what I'm saying? So learning sales helps you even like in all of these other things. So it doesn't matter what area you're getting coached in, that junk goes with you and it changes everything. Like even on vacation, like practicing gratitude is one of my big things. It's all in my book. And going on vacation, I realized like I'm even more in the moment. I'm enjoying things more because I was practicing gratitude for my business. And now I'm on vacation and like I'm reaping the benefits totally unrelated. So that's a big deal. I love it. I love talking to other coaches because we are on a different vibe. Like there's this whole expansion mindset. I absolutely love it. And that's why it's adamant that we are around coaches, that we're paying a coach, that we're invested. Because when we invest in our coaching, the coach is invested in us too, right? And so I love it that as coaches, we're also paying coaches. So we're not just like talking the talk, we're walking the walk, right? That's a big deal. What about daily habits? Can you talk to me about some of your daily success habits as an online business owner who's very successful? So for anyone who's listening, who's starting out, tell me about your habits because I'm always talking about my habits. I want to hear yours.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay. So a game changer habit for me is grounding at the beginning of the day. As an entrepreneur, I feel like, and as an entrepreneur, if anyone's listening, if you juggle a lot of different, well, you're going to juggle a lot of different hats, but if you're creating something and there's a lot of different facets to it, especially if it's something that's not out there, I feel like there's a taller order for you to ground your energy because basically you're taking input, external input coming from left and right. And this is something that I work with my clients on too. So it's like, I do it, I support them in doing it too, is finding it's like a ritual or routine at the top of the morning. For me, I do chanting. I get into spiritual energy right away. And then I do silence. So it's kind of like a meditation where I'm listening in to receive. Now, I've worked with a lot of people and, I know that not everybody is, vibes with meditation. And I just want to make that clear. It's not like a requirement to like that everyone has to be able to meditate. But what I tell my clients is like, finding the thing that taps you in to the deeper connection with yourself. Right. And so, meaning like in the morning, instead of like first thing, like opening up your laptop or you're opening up your emails or going on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram and just like, it's so much feedback that we're getting from these things. And I do feel like, especially in the early stages of your business, in the early stages, it's almost as if the energy is more fragile because you're so new and you're learning how to hold it all, that if you just allow your mind to just go on autopilot first thing in the morning, it's not going to feel anchoring as you move through the rest of what you need. So I use it. I like if we were to put like a masculine energy spin on this, like a businessy spin, you can think of this as like a really important investment for the rest of your day. Like, okay, maybe in the moment it would feel easier to just go on TikTok and just, be hit with all the different videos. You never know what you're going to get. You roll the dice. There's something very overstimulating about that app, which is why so many people love it. And so you could do that, or you could make a greater investment that has a greater payoff and move into an awareness practice. It can be music that really brings you into the presence of your connection with yourself or source, God, universe, like however anyone would refer. It could be breath work. It could be a body scan. I mean, there's so many ways I feel like we can come home to ourselves. And if it seems like something hard to do, I feel like for a long period of time, you can start out with a shorter period of time and increase it as you go. For me right now, it's 30 minutes. So I usually do 15 minutes of the chanting, and then it's roughly, and then 15 minutes of the listening. And it's so interesting. In the first 15 minutes, I start getting downloads right away. And so for me, it's a huge investment because I'm like, oh, hell yeah. Like I want to get in there and like see, what's being given because this could be an amazing breakthrough for a client. This could be amazing breakthrough for something I'm doing in media. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, but it's also like, aside from business, it could be a breakthrough about my personal life, which is just as important. And so I get these little gifts, gifts drop from the sky. It's like, I don't know, Christmas. And I'm like, ooh, that was good. Oh, whoa, thank you for that. Thank you for that. And it's like that. And then in the second part, when I'm listening in, it's just my time to kind of like sit with it. And sometimes I get more, and I keep a journal too, because they've been like right by my nightstand and on my nightstand. And sometimes it's like, I'll go right from that session with myself to, writing it all down. And it's like, do little bullet points or whatever. And I'm just like, okay, wow, there's a sense of gratitude that all this came in. Some of it's really next level too. I'm like, whoa. I'm like,
I love that.
But it also, aside from just like getting all the good stuff, because that's fun, it's also working out the stuff that that's challenging. That helps me with that too. Like I had this week I had a little bit of a conflict with a family member, and it was just sitting on me in the weirdest way. And I was like, I don't want to carry this energy with me. It's going to affect my work, and just, energy is everything. You can't just compartmentalize it away, pretend it's not going to come into play. So I was like, okay, I'm setting the intention. I went into my little morning connection meeting with myself and brought that in. And the intention was, hey, I want to understand a little bit more about what this is for me. Hey, I want to understand how I can start to release this in the greatest and highest good of all involved, not just me, not just them, but for everybody. And all of a sudden it starts, little pieces, little droplets start coming together. And I think the beautiful thing about the morning practice is it's just one starting thing. It doesn't mean you can do it several times throughout the day. But I also feel like it generates energy for you throughout the day. So like I got a bits and pieces about how I was to release, and like about releasing that thing about the conflict with the family member. But then later, like midday around lunch, I was literally just in my pantry, not even really consciously thinking about it. And then I got the second piece. And it was one of those moments where somebody would probably think I was a little silly if they saw me in person in these moments, because I'm like, oh, it's a full-on reaction.
Yeah. Well, I love that you do your chanting. Something that I want to mention that I've learned from my ND coach is when we do something like chanting, like when little kids, when they're screaming, we're actually activating our vagus nerve, and that calms us, that gives our body a sign that everything's good, the vibration. So I think that's a great morning routine. And if anyone that's listening is like, I would love to implement that, but like, am I just going to sit in my room for 15 minutes chanting? No, you can start with 1 minute of chanting, 30 seconds of chanting, and 30 seconds of silence. Because one of my biggest things is setting those, the habits, creating the habits. And so just showing up and doing it, putting 30 seconds, just looking at your watch, 30 seconds, that's all it is. And establishing that routine. And little by little, you'll be like, oh, I'm already here. Let me do 30 more seconds.
Mm-hmm.
I'm already here. Oh, I'm getting a really good download. I'm going to stay here for 3 minutes. And little by little, once you develop that habit, then you can start habit stacking. Then you can add a little bit more time into those habits. And it just becomes, you can go on autopilot and then do those habits, because those habits become the muscle memory. That's just what you do. And so I love, love, love that. And then the silence, that's also super important, especially in the morning, because of what you said. We are bombarded with information all the time. If you're on your phone, you get ads, you get this, you get that. If you're driving, you're seeing all these billboards. If you're watching TV, if you're listening to the radio, like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're talking to someone, they're telling you about something that they saw. Oh, did you see this TikTok? Oh, did you watch this movie? Oh, your kid wants you to buy like the latest Jordans or whatever it is that they, that they're into now. I don't know anymore. But there's always so much information. So sometimes just giving ourselves a chance to connect, like you said, with God, with the source, with the universe. Sometimes we just have to listen. Like, it's not even about meditating. It's just about being quiet for a second and seeing what ideas, because your brain is like full of everything else. So like, just a moment of silence. That's why I say our best ideas come when we're pooping on the toilet, or when we're in the shower. Unless you take your phone with you, if you leave the phone out, you're going to get the best ideas, because there's nothing else distracting you. You're in the shower and you're doing exactly what you're saying. You're downloading because your brain has a chance to, like, oh my God, I can finally think my own thoughts now. If you're constantly on TikTok, you're reading, you're looking. And so giving your brain a chance to just think its own thoughts. What an amazing idea.
Clearing the deck a little bit, right?
Yes,
Like, you're
yes.
so right that there's it's almost as if it's easier to just be zapped by all the information we take in, because it's so readily available. And I think that's why sometimes this feels, for some people, if we're not used to or accustomed to the sitting in the silence, it's like it might feel like very foreign. It might just feel so different, because I feel like the norm is, in society, is like to get the zap.
I'm wasting time. I could be doing something right now.
Yeah, to get the zap. And I actually feel called to tell your listeners about one other thing that I think could be really helpful. Is that okay? Do we have time?
Yes, absolutely. Go for it.
Okay. So the energy and the practice around non-judgment, like around ourselves, I feel like that is something, especially as an entrepreneur, we are seeing a lot of what's out there, also with other people's businesses and other people, growing and scaling their businesses. And I think that, like, reprogramming ourselves and getting into a practice, and again, it can start small, but a practice of being mindful of like how we talk to ourselves. And if we're bringing in the judgments and the comparisons, I feel like if we have a running program, and I don't know why this is coming through, but like it could even be like how we were raised sometimes, previous relationships, like anything that would have contributed to this running program of like just judging ourselves at a moment's notice so quickly, so swiftly, to the
and
point.
Then judging ourselves for judging ourselves.
That's it. Yes. Yes. So something, as I say, is I forgive myself for judging myself for blank.
I love that.
I just move into, like, it can be anything. And believe you me, when I say this statement the first time, it doesn't always stick. It doesn't just go like, forgiveness. Oh, free. Oh, let's go frolic. Sometimes it's like, I say it and I'm like, okay, let me say it again. All right, let me say it again. Let me say it again. And I even think in the self-development space, in the spiritual space, as I do work with a lot of entrepreneurs who are spiritual or built, have a spiritual business, we can sometimes be the hardest on ourselves.
Mhm.
I think because we have all this awareness and we feel a responsibility to be in alignment, that can then become a judgment. And then, so I feel like making it a regular practice. I forgive myself for judging myself for not doing my meditation this morning. I forgive myself for judging myself for, I don't know, eating the fries when maybe I could have eaten the celery. I don't know. Like, it just, everyone has a different running script of
Mhm.
like what is supposed to be. And that even, I've worked with my students on, like, that can be a judgment too. Oh, when you're high vibe, you're not supposed to, I don't know, watch reality TV or
Well,
something.
that's like shooting all over yourself. I shouldn't do
Shoulding.
that. I shouldn't
That's
do that.
right.
Right?
I should. And that's a judgment. And
Yes.
that's a judgment. And
Yeah, yeah.
so,
And it starts with, like you said, acknowledging it. When you realize that it's happening, um, the first thing you do is like, oh, that was a judgment. Don't judge it. Don't be like, oh, there you go again, being stupid and judging yourself. Like, I just caught myself judging myself. What does that mean? And then be like, I forgive myself. Yes. And then think, exploring that and just catching yourself doing it. In the beginning, the first thing you have to do is take inventory, I always say. So catching yourself doing it and be like, that's a judgment. And then just leaving it like that. Like, you
yeah.
don't have to judge yourself about it. Just recognize that it happened and
Mhm.
then forgive yourself. And then just pay attention. Just think about what you think about. Because most people don't do that. Like, you just do that once a day and like you're ahead of like 90% of the population because people don't think about what they think about.
That is, I love how you put that. And I love that you emphasize this. I don't hear this, a lot of people saying this, but like just the neutral observation of it,
Mhm.
not a judgmental observation. Like you said, like, oh, I judge, oh, I'm so bad. Like that, I feel like the tendency to have another judgment just thrown on top of catching the judgment, like that can be a slippery slope. So I love that you mentioned that neutral, almost like just a curiosity, like, oh, look at that.
Yes,
There you go.
exactly. Just a curiosity. Oh,
Yeah. Oh,
that did happen. Oh, that thing Nicole said. Look, I did do that. Oh my goodness. Okay. That's interesting. And that's it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Make it a game. Make it a game.
yeah.
Because when you catch yourself doing that, then you can stop it. But until you don't see it happening, until you don't observe it happening, you can't do anything about it, because you're denying, oh, that I don't do that, so yes. Awesome. So um closing off here, do you have any last minute? Actually, I haven't asked you, because you mentioned, oh, one last thing. How can we stay in touch with you?
You can go to Inner Vibe Tribe on Instagram.
Love
Yeah.
that. And your vibe tribe.
And I'm actually gearing up to do some free stuff coming up soon. So I'm really
Ooh.
excited. It's along the lines of the stuff we've been talking about today. So I'm just excited to serve and give people something they can take home and follow by and use and integrate, because I think it's just needed.
I love it. Awesome. So any last downloads that you'd like to share with us?
No, just on the piece of the non-judgment, being kind to yourself. I'm sure that, whoever's listening, wherever you are on your journey and on your path, like, thank yourself for the work you've done to arrive there. And I feel like we can still hold space for our desires as we want to grow and move forward. I mean, that's all of us. Nobody's ever fully arrived at where they are on the path. So yeah, love yourself where you are right now.
Yes. Enjoy the journey, right? It's not about the destination, it's about the journey. Like, that's, I like, the older I get, the more I understand it. When I was little, like, you would say that and you'd be like, yeah, enjoy the journey. And then you get older and you're like, oh my God, the whole thing is a journey.
The
I
whole
get
thing.
it now. Yes, awesome. Thank you so much for being here with us today, Whitney. This has been absolutely phenomenal. And I look forward, I'm definitely going to be hanging out with you on Instagram. So I hope to see you guys there as well. So thank you. We'll talk
Thanks,
soon then.
Nicole.
All right. Bye,
Bye.
guys. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you next time.